The good news is that this is an all-new edition of the Fairfax Sports Report. The bad news is you got to put up with me for an hour after missing out on me last week. But don't worry, the boys are still here. Big Paul Frummel and John Marcario, and I must say you guys held down the fort very well last week. But I'm back, folks, so didn't go too far. It's good to be back, guys. You did a great job, I have to say. You guys really turned it on, man. You stepped up the game,
Sometimes when you miss such a big hole that is the Kubarulas on this set, you have to step up your game.
Absolutely. All right, I am BJ Kubarulis, the host here on the Fairfax Sports Report, and I'm going to try to step up my game tonight to talk a little bit about these local teams. But before we get to that, let's talk about the folks that make this show possible. And of course, we're talking about our underwriters, one of our teammates, CCI Screen Printing at 703-978-0257 for all your screen printing needs, and Quality Care Ford Service Center. They service all makes and models at 703-383-6299. And don't forget about one of our best teammates, Triple Edge Lacrosse, a positive lacrosse experience at www.tripleedgelax.com. All right, guys, we have our Triple Edge Lax report coming up later in the show, where we'll show the folks at home our top 10, who are the top 10 ranked teams. But before we get to that, let's talk about some of the top teams in Northern Region girls soccer-wise, gentlemen. The soccer scene here in the Northern Region is one of the strongest in the state, always pushing teams into what seems to be a state final. Been a while, though, since a team from this area has won a state championship. And when you look at the top 10 rankings and who are the top girls teams, it starts with Centerville. Centerville, Paul, is a team that all three of us have gotten a chance to see. Warren Williams and the Wildcats were on the show here last week. Kate Tissinger and Morgan Benz, two of the top returners for the Wildcats this season. They've got a 6-1-1 record, and this past week was a difficult week for them. They dropped to Westfield and then tied Robinson. What do you see out of the Wildcats, and what are they going to have to do to bounce back?
Well, for one, you have to be in your best game playing in the Concord district, and there's going to be times playing in a district so as tough as the Concord where you're going to stumble a little bit. We saw that this week where they stumbled a little bit, losing to Westfield and escaping with a tie over against Robinson. So it's something that they can bounce back from easily. These are seasoned girls, and it shouldn't be a problem for them.
They've got so much talent on that squad, John, and you and I were impressed with their talent when we saw them play against Robinson this past week. It was a tie. It was a game that went into, obviously, overtime when you have a tie in high school soccer, 2 5-minute extra periods. And you and I noticed something. In that first overtime period, Centerville really turned it on. They became a different team than we saw throughout the entire game. And I wonder, where was that the rest of the game against a Robinson squad that they faced off with in the Concord District Finals last year? It's a game they should be up for.
They should be kind of, if you and I have differing opinions on what we saw during the game, I think, contrary to what you say, you shouldn't be stumbling if you're Centerville, that experienced and that good of a team, to a Westfield team going into that game that had a couple of losses, then to flat out play flat soccer for 60 minutes against a Robinson team, down 1-0, truly dominated for most of that game until Robinson scored. And then, as you said, BJ, they flicked on the switch, but they needed a generous call from the referee to get in position to tie that game. Dominated overtime. I believe they outshot Robinson 8-1 after Robinson went up 1-0. But you can't have that switch all the time. I mean, sooner or later it's going to catch up with you. It caught up with them against Westfield. You tied Robinson. Robinson's a very good team. Westfield's not a very good team. It's a little warning bell because playoffs are coming around rather quickly.
Well,
right
I
now.
beg to differ with you. I think Westfield is a better team than their records show. They do have that enigma loss to Oakton. But they have stepped up and played well against some of the more difficult teams, Paul.
Well, one thing is you mentioned flipping on the switch on and off. If they do that, it's a great time to learn that they shouldn't do that. Right now is a great time to know, hey, we need to play the entire game as hard as we did in that overtime period. So it's probably a beneficial loss. I know coaches hate to say that, but it's kind of probably a beneficial loss for them.
Speaking of a loss that you don't want to call it beneficial because no coach likes to lose, but last night South County dropped a game ending their undefeated season against West Springfield. John, what did you see in that game?
I saw we're starting to get into contender and pretender week or weeks, and South County had beaten a very good Chantilly team. That was their one sparkling win on the resume. But this game against West Springfield is kind of a statement game. Senior night, West Springfield came in with 1 loss or 2 losses on the regular season. and they just fell behind 1-0 early and could never recover from there on out. Ended up losing 3-0. Lauren Reinshuttle, also a basketball star for the Stallions, did a solid job in goal. She's a very solid, or very good athlete in general. She seemed to struggle a little bit with certain placements of shots. She said after the game to me that she's still kind of learning the position a little bit and where to go on certain things. She said the first goal was her fault. That could become a problem, though, come playoff time.
Well, she's doing a good job learning the position. She's got 34 saves on the year already, and she's pitched 5 shutouts, and she's only given up 7 goals. So Reinshuttle headed to Duquesne to play basketball. She was a star on South County's basketball team this last year, and she's really stepped up her game in the goal. She kind of came out on a dare from a freshman forward to come out and play for the team, and walked onto the team this year, and now starting in goal for a team that was undefeated up until last night. It was a 3-0 upset loss for the West Springfield Spartans at South County, so they pulled off a big upset. And West Springfield, John, has played one of the more difficult schedules in the Northern Region for girls soccer.
They've played a silly, silly schedule. They've beaten Stonebridge. They've tied Robinson. They lost to Lake Braddock. They beat South County last night. I mean, that's 2 wins against what arguably are 2 of the top 5 teams in the entire Northern Region in soccer. West Springfield is legit, and they've got a very good young group of players, along with a very seasoned group of experienced players. Their goalkeeper has pitched 5 shutouts in their last 7 games this year, so they've got the goalkeeping, the offense, and the defense. Very dangerous team to watch out for.
We're going to talk a lot about some of these other big Northern Region girls teams, but before we do that, I'd like to show the folks at home who are the hot teams to watch in Northern Region girls soccer, and you start right at the top. Stonebridge is a team that's got only 1 loss, and we talked about that loss already. They lost to West Springfield very, very early in the season, and ever since then they have reeled off over 9 straight victories. Have the Bulldogs and Christy Rodriguez having a bang-up season, Paul.
Most recently, Stonebridge did beat Langley 5-1, and Rodriguez had a hat trick in that game, so still rolling.
West Springfield is led by Amalia Clayton, who had the opening goal in the upset win over South County. She's only a sophomore, 5 goals to her name, but John, she was involved in nearly every offensive chance for the Spartans last night in that win against South County.
She was all over the field, up and down, sideline to sideline, nearly had an assist on another goal, if not for a great defensive play by South County. Clayton, as their coach said, has Amalia speed, and then she has the next level speed, and that's just flat scary if you have not seen her play.
All right, and usually we try to pick just one player to highlight from each team, but when you talk about Langley and their only losses to Centerville and Stonebridge, 10 wins, they've got 2 players lighting it up. Megan Lensick and Kelly Germain both have 12 goals to their name and over 5 assists apiece. And that is a Langley squad that just dropped to Stonebridge, and that was a rematch of last year's Liberty District final. Centerville, as we mentioned, is a team that has struggled as of late, but they will look to bounce back, led by a freshman, actually, Jenna Richmond. She's got 6 goals and 8 assists. And then you look at Robinson, Jim Reich, in his 26th year in the Northern Region. He's got Robinson out to a 7-0-3 start. Audrey Berry, part of a track squad that won in the Northern Region Indoor Track Tournament, and she's one of those speedy girls. A bunch of them playing for both Centerville and Robinson actually traded silver and gold medals in the Northern Region Tournament. 9 goals for Barry and 4 assists. And then, John, we've already talked about Lauren Reinshuttle, who's had a fantastic start in goal to the season. So, looking at some of these teams, Paul, and some of the bigger teams in the Northern Region, you got to look outside the Northern Region, though, to see maybe one of the best teams in the area. And you're looking at Broad Run. Claire Collins' squad is just unbelievable.
A little bit of a Loudon report, a little early. Broad Run, yes, definitely. They're 10-0 in the district, 11-1 overall. Right now, they are fending off Loudon County, who's 9-1 in the district and 10-1 overall. But Broad Run, the Spartans own spring sports, and that's the case with girls soccer.
Well, John Marcario of the Connection Newspapers has been doing a great job lately of breaking all your basketball news. And before we get out of soccer and into baseball, we've got to go a little backtrack now and hit back into the winter season. John, Herndon's Gary Hall retired after 18 years, 6 district titles, and 1 Northern Region title, and coached arguably the best player ever to come out of the Northern Region in Scotty Reynolds for 4 years. Reynolds, the Big East Rookie of the Year, playing at Villanova now. But you think about the big shoes to be filled left by Gary Hall, and they're bringing in a Herndon grad who played under Hall. What do you expect out of the new hire, which you broke the story of who Herndon hired as the coach.
Well, Chris Whelan will be the new Hornets head coach. He coached at Darien High School for the past couple of years, leading the team to a 9-30 overall record. Do not be fooled about the winning percentage itself. He guided them to their best season in the past 20 years this past season. Prior to his arrival, the team had won 7 games in 7 total years. Very familiar with the area as he's a 1996 Herndon graduate, played for Coach Hall for several years, was a starter on 3 Concord District title teams. He even said Coach Hall called him up after the season ended and personally asked him to be the Hornets head coach. So he's Gary's hand-picked man, so he might know something about the potential of their new man.
All right, so you've got a Herndon grad coming back to fill the Herndon job, and potentially the same could be true for South Lakes. We're not saying any names yet, but there are a couple of candidates on the board now that we know of. We're not going to throw that information out there yet because, it is speculation. But, John, the South Lakes job is a job that is, now that Herndon and Hayfield and Oakton was filled, but Herndon and Hayfield were 2 of the 3 most desirable hoops jobs in the northern region. And then you look at South Lakes, which may be, and it depends on who you're asking, may be the best job in the northern region. What do we know about it? Who's getting the job?
It may be one of the best. There's 4 people that they've narrowed it down to. 2 of them, kind of the obvious ones. Again, we're not going to need names. It's a little surprising that the DSA over there, Linda Jones, has not named a head coach this late in the game. She's starting to lose options. I mean, in my opinion, so far, Hayfield has the cream of the crop so far in Ronald Palmer, who they brought in. It's going to be tough to top that one, but Jones said that she was expecting to announce a coach sometime today or tomorrow. Nothing dropped down today. If you listen to the background right now, quiet, because that's all we have on the front for that.
And the chatter that I'm hearing is that it's an obvious selection and one that everyone knows it's going to be that coach. And it's one of those things that I ask, if that is the case, and it is this coach that everyone, and we're sorry that we're speaking in a cloak and dagger way here, but we don't want to throw out any misinformation, so we're not going to name names. But it's a coach that everybody thinks is going to be the coach. And if that does turn out to be the case, then why not name this coach the coach the day Wendell Bird cleans out his desk and save this entire speculation and just let the kids have a little bit of continuity in who is going to be the coach. So we'll keep track of that. Hopefully we'll have some news for you soon on who's getting the South Lakes coaching job. Let's get back into the spring, though, and let's talk a little bit of baseball. Baseball is where it's at during the spring, and now with this beautiful weather, it does not get much better than this. And guess who is up at the top of the Concord?
Look at Oakton there, 8-1 in the district, 15-2 overall. Chantilly right behind him at 8-2 in the district, 12-5 overall. See Robinson there at 6-4. Centerville surprising 5-5. Westfield also surprising 4-5. Then you got Fairfax 1-8 and Herndon 1-8.
All right, now the early story for the Cougars was that usually what Oakton does is they start off the season slow and then they reel off maybe 8 or 9 wins, then they lose 1 or 2, and then they come back strong for the playoffs. It's what Scott Rowland has done over the last couple of years, and doesn't plan it that way. It's just the way it happens. And I think he's one of the better coaches in the northern region. Oakton has really built up a lot of steam. Keith Werman has a hot bat for the Cougars. He's an excellent catcher, and he's been starting ever since he was a freshman at arguably the toughest position and most important position on the field at catcher. He's been starting there ever since he was a freshman. But just like last year when the Cougars lost Curtis Eward, who was the biggest bat headed to GW, they lost him in preseason practice. They've lost their best hitter again this year in Brandon Padula. A lot of other players have stepped up. Let's talk a little bit about pitching, though. Eric Cantrell off to a fantastic start this year. He recently signed on to play at Virginia Tech. He's accepting an academic scholarship, so he'll be in the School of Business, but he will be playing, and he's entering as one of the pitchers for the Hokies. So Oakton bouncing back, even though losing one of their biggest bats. And just like Eward last year, Oakton would have to make it to the state tournament to get Padula back from that injury, and that's exactly where Curtis Eward got his first at-bat of the season in the state final. All right, so speaking of teams that do know a lot about the state final, maybe not in baseball, but in football this past season, and it seems like everything else to follow, the Chantilly Chargers, Paul, have made a name for themselves this year. They are right up at the top of the Concord.
They stumbled a bit towards the middle of the season, but they've definitely regrouped. They're on a 3-game district win streak with a 5-3 win over Centerville, a 10-0 win over Herndon, and a 7-1 win over Fairfax. 7-2 win over Fairfax, Patrick Summers against Fairfax pitched 5 innings, allowing only 1 hit and no runs. So definitely when we talk about the Chargers, talk about pitching, Summers right up in there, only a one-hitter against Fairfax.
Summers having a fantastic year for the Chargers. But then you look at a team like Centerville. This was a team, and we had Coach Morgan Spencer on early in the season. This was a team no one really knew what the Wildcats were going to do. And they're sitting right at about the middle of the pack, 500 in the district, 5-5, and 7-6 overall. But they seem to be responding and playing for Spencer.
Well, when I talked to Coach Spencer after they beat Westfield, we have been talking all season about getting that momentum, getting that one win to get the monkey off their back. Well, they beat Westfield, and he said this should be the win. Well, since then, they're 4-2. They beat Herndon, they beat Loudoun Valley, they beat Fairfax, they beat Robinson, losing to Oakton and Chantilly, the two teams ahead of the two teams at the top of the district. So they are definitely turning a corner, and that's good, building momentum to the district tournament.
I talked to Madison coach Mark Jorman, Pudge, as many of you baseball fans know him, early when Spencer first got the job at Centerville. And a lot of times it's difficult to discern if a coach is giving you coach talk, if he's just trying to look out for one of his buddies when they're talking to the media, or if they're being serious with you. And Pudge told me, and it's safe to say this now because everything has gone the way of Morgan Spencer, but he said, look, he said, they're going to be good. He said Spencer's a good coach, and they've got some talent there. And I think that we're seeing that, one of the biggest coaches in the Northern region, to say that Centerville is going to be good. Sometimes you wonder, is that for real? But blowing no smoke is Jorman. Spencer, his understudy, who was a former coach at Madison, doing a bang-up job. John, I got to ask you, buddy, what's wrong with the Robinson Rams? That's this team that a lot of people thought was going to come into this season with a lot of steam and do some damage, and they're sputtering a bit.
I would be one of those people. I thought they would be the Northern Region champs early season. If you look at their 6-4 Concord record, you see they're 2 games back of Chantilly, 3 games back of Oakton. Last week they had a very puzzling 7-1 loss to Centerville, which is surprising because early in the year they had a 2-0 shutout against Oakton. You have to go inside the numbers, though, to figure out why Robinson is struggling. In their 4 Concord District losses, they're averaging 7.25 runs giving up per game. In their 6 wins, they're averaging 2.5 runs they're giving up. Pitching wins and loses ball games. That's what's happening to Robinson right now. They've got 2 nice wins against Westfield, but they're also beating up on some Herndon and Fairfax teams that are near the bottom of the district. Robinson is definitely going to need to string together some impressive outings and some wins against the upper echelon teams if they're going to even sniff any kind of regional title right now.
I was able to see a red flag early in the season for Robinson when I saw them play Centerville. Centerville put up 6 runs in 1 inning early in the game. Robinson's bats battled back to score 7 runs to beat Centerville 7-6. You see when Centerville beat Robinson 7-1 game. So I think the bats just weren't working against Centerville a second time.
All right, and you look at a team like a Westfield, I've heard now a couple times, and then they beat Westfield, and that was a statement game. But are they statement games now when you look at Westfield, 4-5 in the district, 10-7 overall, and Westfield's always been a good team, though. Are those still statement games? Do they mean as much? And Paul, you cover Westfield. What's going on with the Bulldogs?
Now, it does mean something to beat Westfield. Westfield is still considered one of the top teams in the district. They're definitely having kind of a down year. I mean, I mentioned when Centerville beat Westfield, what they've done since. Since Westfield lost to Centerville, they lost Centerville 4-2. They lost to Robinson 4-0, and Oakton 10-2. So I think Westfield is still one of the top teams, but you're seeing a reemergence of the Cougars, a reemergence of the Rams, a reemergence of the Wildcats that are just overtaking the Bulldogs. It's not like the Bulldogs are falling off.
All right, so speaking of teams that have made big impacts this year, when you look at the Liberty District, and we've talked about Madison, we've talked about Langley, we haven't talked about Jefferson. And we're going to do that in just a minute. Jefferson has made an impressive outing in the last couple of games. We're going to talk to Coach Randy Lytle in just a minute. Stay tuned with us here, folks, and let's run through these Liberty District standings, though, guys, and tell the folks at home exactly who sits where in that Liberty District. Madison, 10-1 in the district, no surprise there, 14-2 overall. And Langley right there at 8-3, as well as Stonebridge. And Stonebridge, one of the teams that beat Langley, and the other loss for Langley came to Jefferson. Jefferson only 4-7 in the district, 8-8 overall. And then you look in the middle of the pack, it's McLean and South Lakes. Woodson having a bit of a down year, and Marshall struggling a bit. Nothing new for the Statesmen over there, who had a pretty good year last year, right up at about the middle of the pack, but can't really seem to climb this year. But when you think about the Liberty District this week, you got to think about Coach Randy Lytle and the Thomas Jefferson Colonials. Paul, you got a chance to do some reporting on the Colonials this week, and we'll tell the folks at home. They defeated Madison and Langley, the top two teams in the Liberty District. Coach Randy Lytle said that this was probably the most historic win that the TJ baseball program has ever had.
Now, when you look at that win, you have to look at the pitching. They controlled the hot Madison bats through three different pitchers, pitched a great game against Madison to get that win.
All right, and speaking about Thomas Jefferson, speaking about pitching and wins, we are welcoming our Thomas Jefferson coach, Randy Lytle. Coach, thanks for joining us here on the Fairfax Sports Report.
Oh, thanks very much for having me tonight.
All right, we were just talking some great things about you guys, and you know, first you guys beat Langley, and then you go and you beat Madison. Madison is the biggest team probably in the northern region, and you guys have, you know, I don't think in recent memory you've beaten Madison, but an epic performance the other night by Mike Messing, who pitched 3 scoreless innings before yielding to Stumval and then Patrick Yarrick. Mensing also doubled and homered, and you guys forced Madison to leave 10 runners on base, 8 of those in scoring position. Coach, how were you able to get that big win?
That big win was a culmination of the 2 previous wins. We had a terrific start on Monday when we played Woodson. That we were up 8-7 going into the 7th inning. We brought in Patrick Yarrow, our closer. He gives up a pinch hit home run. Our kids could have got down. Next thing you know, bottom of the 7th, Jonathan Seidman, senior center fielder, hits a walk-off home run. That really got us up. Then we face a very, very tough team in Langley on Tuesday at home. We're down a couple runs. Next thing you know, we score 2 in the bottom of the 7th, pull that game out, 6-5. So I had the kids believing in themselves. So when Madison comes to our place and we jump out to that 3-0 lead in the first inning, and we get a terrific start on the mound by Mike Mensing, the kids just hung in there. And Mensing's home run in the bottom of the 6th, giving us a 5-3 lead, was huge. And it was the most exciting victory that I've ever been associated with, and it truly was a historic win for TJ. We've had some very, very good teams in the past, the '97 and 2001 Concord District champs. But I would have to say that this was really monumental in the annals of Thomas Jefferson baseball.
Now, Coach, talking more about Mensing, I believe he went 3 for 3, drove in 3 runs, scored 3 runs, and also pitched 3 scoreless innings. So talk about a little bit more about him and the impact he's having on this team.
Oh, Mike is having a terrific impact on the team. I mean, he bats in the number 5 spot. He could probably bat higher, but I do like him in the 5 spot. He's hitting right now at a 357 clip, 666 slugging average, 3 home runs. And I'll tell you what, he's a tough luck pitcher because his record is 0-4, and he's got a 2.83 earned run average. So Mike is definitely one of the leaders on this ball club offensively, and has done a terrific job in starting ball games. And you could see it by the way that he shut down a very, very tough Madison team for the first few innings.
What did you do against Madison? The Warhawks have scored in double digits 3 of the last 4 games, and your team was able to hold them to one of their 4 lowest scoring outputs of the whole season. What went right for you in that game?
Well, you know what? I'm going to give all the credit to my pitching coach, Johnny Lamb, because we pitch by committee. We do not have any dominant pitchers on our team. We've got 7 kids that all can go out there at any time and throw strikes, but like I say, no one dominant. And Johnny Lamb just knew how to pull the right strings at the right time, with following Mensing, with Stumval, and then closing with Yarrow.
Coach, when you think about Madison, and I don't even know how many titles they've had in the district, but when you think about coming over, as you said, from the Concord and playing in this district, it's a difficult district to play in. Obviously, the Concord was one as well. But what does this mean, this win over Madison? What does this mean to the Thomas Jefferson program and school?
Well, it's unbelievable. We're talking about a David versus Goliath type of situation, and not to make too much light of it. We're also talking about Rocky Balboa and Apollo Creed. This is huge. This is the biggest win, I think, in the history of the Thomas Jefferson program, and something that everyone can look back on and say we were part of this. But it's also something that I look forward to building in the future as far as the confidence level of the kids.
Now, Coach, being a magnet school that pulls kids from all across the northern region, when you see teams like Centerville who grab kids from SYA early, or Fairfax who grabs kids from FPYC, and kids have those bonds going into their freshman year on the team, what kind of problems does that breed when you have kids from across the region joining the Thomas Jefferson team?
Well, it creates several problems. First of all, because they're all across the region, these kids are getting up at 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning on their way to school. They don't get out until 4 o'clock in the afternoon, anywhere between 1 and 2 hours after everyone else. And because of the high academic standards that are set, these kids can struggle at times. And as coaches, we have to be aware that their academics come first. So we have to make certain concessions to these kids when it comes to their academics. And then we practice them really, really hard from about 4:30 until 6:30, and then boom, off they go for another hour or longer ride back home, and have to worry about studying and getting ready for their classes the next day.
Now, Coach, for those of us that weren't in the dugout, take me through those final 3 outs against Madison. What was the dugout like, and what was the atmosphere like after the game?
Well, the atmosphere during the dugout was just unbelievable, and and I actually took a look over in the stands, and I noticed that from what I heard, there was a soccer match going on. Kids came over, looked at the scoreboard, and started racing to the stands. We had people down the right field line. The dugout, the kids were just going crazy in there supporting our guys, and the word surreal is used often. But I can't think of a better word to use, that it was just an amazingly surreal experience. After the Langley game, the coach came and said to me, Johnny Lamb said, "Coach, we just beat Langley." And I said, it's unbelievable. And I just didn't know how to react, after we had beaten Madison. But everyone in the stands went wild. And but I'll tell you what, Coach Pudge Jormond over there is a very, very good guy, and congratulated me on a terrific win and told me what a wonderful job I had done with the kids.
And we've talked about the scope of the win, the biggest win in the history. What does this mean for the here and now for the Colonials? This has to show your kids that you can do it. You can beat anybody in this district, in this region. How much confidence is that going to build for the rest of this season?
Oh, a tremendous amount of confidence. At the beginning of the season, I set goals. I don't think these guys, I know that this very, very young team last year that went 4-14, I challenged them this year. I said, number one goal is we want to play 600 ball. Number 2 goal is we want to win the Alexandria City Tournament, which will help us reach that number 1 goal. And I said the number 3 goal is, in the 6 years that I've been at Thomas Jefferson, 4 as an assistant to Dan Petotsky, 2 as the head coach, we have not won a district game. So these are the challenges, guys, and so far we met the Alexandria City Championship Challenge, winning 4 out of 5 games there. And now we have huge wins last week. So we're not done yet. That's the bottom line, and the kids are very confident.
Coach, I want to thank you so much for coming here on the Fairfax Sports Report and sharing your knowledge and excitement with us. A big win for the program. Again, folks at home, Thomas Jefferson knocked off Madison, which has been ranked atop our polls ever since the season started, and was ranked nationally in the top 10 in several different polls. So a huge win for Thomas Jefferson. Randy Lytle, thanks for joining us, and good luck, Coach, down the stretch.
And thank you very much for having me.
Okay.
Thanks, Coach.
Good night.
And guys, I mean, it's great to get a chance to talk to a coach who was there. Obviously, you ask about inside the dugout, what was that like? And I think you really get a feeling from his excitement and his ability to kind of relay that to us and to the folks at home. I think you just see what these Colonials were able to do was really special to that area, to that part of town, and really special to that team. And speaking of that team, let's show the folks at home, what is this team like? Who are they? Who do they rely on, and who are the big guns? You see there, 6-5 win over Langley, a 5-4 win over Madison, and they won 3 out of the last 4. They're 8-8 overall and 4-7 in the Liberty District. And who has gotten them to that point? Who has gotten the Colonials to march on the Liberty? And when you think about the top guns, you think about Alex Radcliffe, 433 batting average, 11 RBI. J.B. Vandesand, 317 batting average, 7 RBI. none of ththese numbers are huge numbers, guys, but you just look at a gritty team that's been able to grit it out. Patrick Yarrick, he's mentioned, 2.63 ERA, 3-1 on the mound, and 24 strikeouts. And then Big Seidman there, Big John Seidman, a 4.20 ERA, a 3-2 record, and 14 strikeouts. And then Mike Messing, Paul, getting it done on both the pitching mound and at the plate.
You see it winless on the year. Pitching-wise, Coach just mentioned, I mean, look at that ERA, 2.83. It should be mentioned that he didn't pick up the win against Madison, pitched the first 3 innings scoreless. They were tied at that point.
And, you know, these kids right here, you see, this is a dream season for them, having beaten Madison, the number 9 ranked team entering the preseason, and number 1 atop our poll, number 9 nationally, and of course also Langley, a team that's still ranked in the top 10. Speaking of Langley, let's talk a little bit about the Saxons, and I just want to mention 2 players that are having a fantastic year. Daniel Bergameska actually transferred from Jefferson to Langley, and I just want to read some numbers on him. A .510 batting average, rather a .510 on-base percentage, and a .359 batting average. 1 home run, 6 RBI, he scored 21 runs, and he's stolen 10 bags. Fast guy, got a chance to see him against McLean. That one available, folks, on demand. And Tommy Tice, who has had so much confidence at the plate, 15 RBIs, okay? And 23 hits and a .469 batting average. So Langley also in the hunt. Don't want to write off the top 2 teams because they're still going to be there. This is a big impact win for Jefferson. We'll see, like Paul asked, if they can build on some of that steam. Speaking of steam, John, is it all steam and hot air in the Patriot District? Because we can't figure out who's the top gun. You've got Braddock, South County, West Springfield, all vying in those top 3 spots. Let's show the folks at home exactly who sits where in the Patriot District.
Well, BJ, as red as my shirt is, the Patriot is hot at the top. Lake Braddock sits in first place, 10-1 in district play, 15-2 overall. South County Stallions there, 8-2 in district play, 11-4 overall. West Springfield Spartans, 6-3 in district play, 8-6 overall. Hayfield, middle of the pack, 6-4 in district play, 7-8 overall. Then we get to the bottom 4. TC Williams, 5-7 in district play, 5-11 overall. They've had a tough 2-game stretch, losing both games to Loudoun Valley and South County. West Potomac comes in next. They are 3-7 in district play, 6-10 overall. Annandale is 2-8 in district play, 5-11 overall. And Lee's Lancers, 0-9 in district play, 1-14.
All right, John. So Lake Braddock, obviously the big gun there. West Springfield in the hunt. And South County, a team that I've talked about pitching and Mike Graham, but Mike Graham hasn't pitched since the beginning of the season. And he's a guy that's had a little tendonitis, I believe, is the issue. Talk a little bit about that squad and how they've been able to bounce back to an 8-2 district record, 11-4 overall.
Well, I love South County. They've had 5 total home runs on the year. They manufacture runs, and you have to love teams that manufacture the runs. Jesse Beal and Scott Hall have been flat silly on the mound for the Stallions. They've had 7 games this year where they've either shut the opponent out or given 1 run or less. They're not giving up many runs. During their recent hot stretch, they're allowing 1 to 2 runs per game. It's just that Stallions team is a very, very good team.
All right, speaking of good teams in the Patriot District, West Springfield and Lake Braddock. Talk a little bit about Lake Braddock and West Springfield and who's going to take this Patriot District title.
Well, Lake Braddock, they just keep on winning. They've won 8 in a row. They had a close game on Monday or Tuesday. They beat Hayfield 20-1. Little squeaker in that one. During their recent 8-game stretch, they've scored an average of 9.5 runs per game while giving it up an average of 2.3 runs a game. They're pitching and hitting very, very dangerous for the Bruins. As for West Springfield, kind of sputtering a little bit. They're 3-3 in their last 6. I think they're going to end up playing third fiddle to South County and Lake Braddock. I'm going to go out on a little bit of a limb here and say South County takes the regular season and tournament title.
All right, there you have it. John Marcario's picks. So he picked South County. Everybody else picked Lake Braddock, and we'll be just fine. That's how we do it at the office, folks. All right, National District standings. Let's jump into those, and let's show the folks at home who sits where in the National District. Yorktown right up at the top, John, 8-2 in the district and 10-7 overall.
Washington and Lee is next. They are 7-2 in district play, 10-7 overall. Edison's Eagles, third place, 6-3 in district play, 10-6 overall. Then you have Mount Vernon, 4-5 in district play, 5-10 overall. Falls Church, 4-6 in district play, 5-12 overall. Wakefield falling a little bit, 3-6 in district play, 4-11 overall. Stewart, the National District lead, they are 0-8 in district play and 0-11 overall.
And there are your National District standings. And before we jump out of baseball, we want to jump into the top 10. It's what you tune in for every week, folks. The top 10 here on the Fairfax Sports Report. This is the coaches poll that was compiled on April 30th. Madison still up at the top, even though they dropped to Thomas Jefferson. Langley goes down to the 4 spot from the 2 spot after dropping to Thomas Jefferson as well. But where's Thomas Jefferson? Not ranked in the top 10. Not a lot of faith in the Colonials, but they've got that us against the world thing going for them. Had Coach Randy Lytle on with us, and that is a program that has certainly seen some energy. Lake Braddock, a lot of energy in the Patriot District. And don't sleep on the Cougars. They were in the state final last year. Chantilly playing in the same district. And John, South County, that's a squad you were just talking about. Stonebridge, Paul. Sam Plank's Stonebridge Bulldogs are a squad that always seem to be in the hunt at any point in the district tournament.
After they lost to Madison, I talked to Coach Sam Plank, and he said, if we win out, we have this number 2. They're going for the number 2 spot in the Liberty District. Right now, they're going great, beating Marshall, McLean, and Woodson. They have Langley on May 8th. They beat them 4-3 earlier this year. They have them again. If they want to win out, get second, they have to beat Langley on May 8th.
All right, John. Robinson drops all the way down underneath Westfield to the 9th spot. This is a team that's been top 5 all year.
Robinson is down there at 9. You see Yorktown is 10th. I'm very critical of certain polls. I'm very critical of this one. No way Madison stays number 1 with Lake Braddock winning 8 games in a row. You cannot do that to a team. I've always been a fan of you play based on how teams are doing now. Madison may be the very best team in the region. Not last week. Lake Braddock on a roll, should be number 1. Joke, they're not.
All right. Come back for more here on the Fairfax Sports Report. Coming up next, the Fairfax Sports Network's Athlete of the Week. I'm your host, BJ Kubarulis, alongside of Paul Frummel and John Marcario. We're going to break. Don't go too far and come on back for more here on the Fairfax Sports Report. You are correct. That was the number you just saw, 1-877-LOVE-TO-LEARN. You don't need to dial that number if you want to learn more about Northern Region sports. Just tune in every week here on the Fairfax Sports Report. And when you do that, you're going to get the Fairfax Sports Network's Athlete of the Week as sponsored by the Connection newspapers. This week, guys, it's a baseball player. Surprise, surprise. Eric Cantrell out of Oakton, headed to Virginia Tech. He's going to play baseball. He's part of the incoming pitching staff. He has secured a spot on the roster. He has committed to the Hokies. And Cantrell is a guy that has been phenomenal. He's not going there on a baseball scholarship. He's actually doing something a bit more difficult to do. He's gotten into the Pamplin School for Business, and he's getting an academic scholarship. But he has been phenomenal on the mound. A .85 ERA, a 5-1 record, 33 innings pitched. He's only given up 34 hits, 4 earned runs, guys. 4 earned runs in 6 starts, and 41 strikeouts. He's a baseball player for Oakton, a senior who pitched down the stretch during Oakton's run through the state tournament last year, John.
Oakton had a nice run in the state tournament. What you see there on the nice stats, though, he's got 41 strikeouts compared to 34 hits. Have to love pitchers that K more than give up hits.
Absolutely. Eric Cantrell, the Fairfax Sports Network's Athlete of the Week. Come on back for more here on the Fairfax Sports Network. Coming up next, your Triple Edge Lacrosse Report here on the Fairfax Sports Report. Welcome back to the Fairfax Sports Report here on the Fairfax Sports Network. I'm your host, BJ Kubarulis, alongside of Paul Frummel and John Marcario, all local sports journalists getting it done. And because we are getting it done, guys, we know all about lacrosse. And we're going to jump into our Triple Edge Lacrosse Report as we do every week. And we're going to start off with our rankings. Who is ranked where by Triple Edge? Triple Edge, of course, compiles these rankings and sends them into us every week. And just from the get-go, Paul, no surprise that Robinson is ranked atop.
This is madness. No, this is Robinson with 190 points, all 19 first-place votes. You see Westfield right there with him with 164 points, jumping from number 3 last week. You got Oakton with 144. You see Woodson, Langley, Madison, Hayfield at number 7 with 93. Chantilly still there with 55, followed by Yorktown in Jefferson. Jefferson with 23 points. They were 10th last year.
And you see Hayfield ranked at the number 7 spot. In just a minute, we are going to have Hayfield coach Jack Kendall join us here on the Fairfax Sports Report to talk about his squad and how they've gotten to that ranking. They have had a phenomenal season. Let's jump into the girls' top 10 rankings, though, John, before we jump out of our Triple Edge Lacrosse top 10. Who is sitting where in the girls?
Earth-shattering a little bit, some changes. Oakton sits atop there, number 1. Loudon Valley is 2nd. Yorktown is 3rd. Robinson Rams drop a little bit. They are 4th. Chantilly's Chargers move up. They are 5th. West Springfield Spartans still undefeated, 6th. Woodson 7th, Langley 8th, Annandale 9th, Stonebridge 10th. Paul, I need to toot my own horn a little bit.
Okay.
I do recall last week I said some of these teams would be losing games this week. It does appear that happened a little bit.
You look, you see that shakeup in the girls lacrosse top 10.
Well, beep, beep, John. Tooting your own horn there. Oakton right up at the number 1 spot, the returning first official girls state champion of the VHSL. Loudoun Valley playing in that combination district in the national district with 119 points. They jump up from the 3 spot. You've got Robinson, a team that, an enigma there, guys, 104 votes there. Down from number 2. They are now at the 4th spot. All right, guys, and we're talking about lacrosse, and when you talk about boys lacrosse in the northern region, the hottest team you got to watch out for right now, John Marcario, is the Hayfield Hawks. And speaking of the Hayfield Hawks, we've got Coach Jack Kendall joining us. Coach, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
All right, Coach. Hayfield is a team that hasn't always been known for lacrosse, but here you guys jump out to a 12-0 start, 6-0 start in the Patriot District. And what happened, Coach? You guys are going to win a title.
Well, I tell you, it kind of started as a vision about 6-7 years ago, working in the youth leagues, trying to grow a program, and I think we had to get to a point where we could be comparable, at least compete with some of the perennial powers like Robinson and Oakton and Westville, Woodson and Langley, and I tried to match their successes. We've had a good season. Got a very strong senior class. They've all really pretty much gelled as a team, and I think we'll give a good run at it.
Now, Coach, tell the viewers at home how many titles in lacrosse Hayfield has won and what the season has meant for the Hawks program.
Never won a title. This year at 12-0, we've obviously won the most regular season games out of any Hayfield boys lacrosse team. And I tell you, if we could be successful again tomorrow night against Lake Braddock and go the season 13-0, that would be a very, very large feat.
Now, Coach, you sit 6th in our coaches poll, undefeated. Do you think you're a little underappreciated amongst other coaches in the area? Would you prefer to be lower in the rankings, kind of a sleeping giant, or up there so teams know who you are?
Well, I like to refer to it being under the radar. I think at 12-0, it's really hard to say that you can be under the radar, but I really haven't proven myself, and until I start playing with the big boys, then I need to be where I am. 6 is just fine.
Coach, talk about some of the key impact players. We've got Michael Markland, Kyle Kendall, Billy Nixon. Who's really stepped up their game this year? Who's been that surprise player that you didn't think was going to come in and be such an impact, but really has?
Well, I would have to say that probably a junior, Stephen Robarch, one of my face-off middies. His older brother had great success, actually. He's part of our first winning team at Hayfield about 5 years ago. And he's done a fantastic job for us.
And, Coach, before we let you go here, I want to ask you, 12-0, 6-0 in the Patriot District, what would this mean if you guys do round this thing out? What would this mean to your program and to the school?
Well, I tell you, it would mean a world to our school. As you know, a couple years ago, we split with South County. We thought that might not put us where we are, but our program is starting to compete at all levels, and I tell you, this would be a monumental boost to the athletic program at Hayfield.
Coach, I want to thank you for joining us here on the Fairfax Sports Report. Congratulations on a dream season at Hayfield Boys Lacrosse. Coach Jack Kendall, thanks for coming on with us.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks,
All right.
Coach.
And guys, John, it's a team that you've gotten a chance now to do a little reporting on. Let's show the folks at home exactly who's who for the Hayfield Lacrosse program, and let's show them a couple of stats and figures. 12-0, 6-0 in the Patriot District, a couple of top performers. Mark Markland, senior goalkeeper, Kyle Kendall, a senior attack, and Billy Nixon, a senior defender for the Hayfield Hawks. John, Coach touched on it a little bit. What does this mean to the program?
It means a lot. They came close last year to winning a title. They lost to T.C. Williams by 1 goal in the Patriot District Championship Tournament game. Very disheartening loss, but they came back this year, beat T.C. 10-7 earlier this year. There you see some of the top performers. Michael Markland has been the key for Hayfield, though. He has been stout in goal, giving up around 6 to 7 goals per game. Kyle Kendall, the name looks familiar. He is the coach's son, but don't be fooled. He's part of a very potent attack that has averaged double figures and has scored double figures in every game but 2 for the Hawks this year. And there you see Billy Nixon, part of a defense that is very stout, a very senior-laden team, as you'll notice up there. It's a tough team to play against. They've got offense, they've got defense. Watch out for them. They play Lake Braddock tomorrow. I will be there. I encourage lots of people to check it out.
All right, Lake Braddock, a team that has seen better years. Let's see who's having a good year, though. Here on the Fairfax Sports Report, we bring you every week the Triple Edge Lacrosse Top 10. And for the boys, guys, Robinson, before we get going, Robinson, obviously the big dog, returning with that state championship to their name.
You see Westfield keep playing real close against Robinson earlier on in the season, 164 points, closely followed by Oakton with 144 points. Again, all these teams in that Concord district. Woodson from the Liberty at 138 points, and followed by Langley 147, Madison 97, Hayfield 94, and Chantilly, Yorktown, and Jefferson round out the top 10 for the boys.
All right, and the girls, no surprise there, another Concord team sitting atop, but then Loudoun Valley comes in at the number 2 spot, up from 3. Robinson drops down to the 4 spot from 2, John. This is a bit of a shakeup, as you mentioned earlier.
It's nice to see there is some shakeups in there. Yorktown slips in at 3rd. Then you have Chantilly at 5th. West Springfield Spartans, again, as I said, watch out for them. Undefeated. They are 6th. Woodson Cavaliers are 7th. Woodson is 7th. Langley is 8th. Annandale's Adams are 9th. And Stonebridge Bulldogs. Welcome back to the rankings. Number 10.
All right, that is your Triple Edge Lacrosse Report. Tune in every week here on the Fairfax Sports Report to get your Triple Edge Lacrosse Report. What you're also going to get here on the Fairfax Sports Report every week is the Loudoun Report by Paul Frummelt, the beat reporter from the Connection newspapers of the Loudoun area. Paul, from South Riding to Parkview, from Sterling to Ashburn. Take it away, my man.
All right, so here is your Loudoun Report for this week. We mentioned the Stonebridge Bulldogs baseball team. I want to drop a few more nuggets on you. They played Langley on May 8th. Here's the thing. They beat McLean 3-2, and they've won 5 straight games in which it was a one-run game. They can win those close ones. Not the case earlier in the year when they lost their first 2 one-run games. Moving on to the biggest game in Loudoun this week, it was softball in a matchup of two of Loudoun's biggest powerhouses. Broad Run beat Loudoun Valley 1-0 on Tuesday. Broad Run's star pitcher Caitlin Delahaba allowed only 1 hit and struck out 15 on the very tough Loudoun Valley batters. Broad Run scored his run in the first inning on a Carla Powell RBI single. It was the only run scored in that game. Valley pitcher Carolyn Williams gave up 4 hits and retired 14 of the final 15 Broad Run batters. So obviously Broad Run still showing they are the best in the northern region at softball. On to baseball, Parkview topped Heritage on Tuesday to remain on top of the Dulles District 3-2. Patriot pitcher Matt Griffin threw 6 shutout innings, striking out 6 for the win. Standings for the Dulles District in baseball, Parkview is on top 10-2, Loudoun County at 8-2, Broad Run there 7-3, and Potomac Falls 6-4. A couple quick hits. Stonebridge beat Langley 5-1 in girls soccer. We mentioned that. Cat trick by Krista Rodriguez. And Briar Woods beat Potomac Falls 2-1 in girls soccer, with Bria Hewitt scoring twice. And that is your Loudoun Report for this week.
All right, the Loudoun Report every week here, folks, on the Fairfax Sports Network.
Ooh, it's crazy.
We are on in Loudoun now, folks, as carried by several different carriers. We are on in Loudoun, so bringing you the news from Loudoun. Who better to do that than the Loudoun Connection beat reporter,
I know my Loudoun.
Paul Frummelt. All right, and who better to bring you madness that's someone that is clinically insane, John Marcario. Marcario's Madness every week. You'll get it here on the Fairfax Sports Report, where John, often we banter things back and forth in the office, and John will often say some things that always we wonder, hey, what do you mean by that? Well, John, this is a chance for John to share his thoughts and madness with the community. John, what's making you mad this week?
Over the past 2 months, there's been a pair of interesting developments with everybody's favorite punching bags, referees. A recently released study by a University of Pennsylvania assistant professor and a Cornell graduate said certain colored referees call more fouls against black athletes than they do white athletes. Down a level, in the high school ranks, the Utah High School Activities Association suspended a pair of coaches for the first 2 games next season and fined them $300 for critical comments they made in the media towards referees after both their respected state basketball games. Now, everybody knows officiating, especially in the college ranks, is not top-notch, but suspending coaches or fining them is not a good precedent to state. To start, most coaches will not comment on officiating unless a call is excruciatingly poor. Is the worst thing that can happen is a coach draws attention to a certain referee that may or may not need to hone his officiating skills. Now, on the topic of referees, fans, yes, fans need to watch their tongue a little bit during games. At the recent game between Robinson and Centerville girls, fans of that school disgraced the players on the field and the school themselves. There's a fine line between screaming bloody murder when a player is severely injured on a certain play or when somebody blows on another player and they happen to fall down for drawing a foul. Fans need to watch what they're saying. Coaches are now being censored, and studies are now being done to see when certain players of a color are fouled. Why should nothing be done for fans? Fans have no right in this day and age when everything is censored to do whatever they want, say whatever they want, and act like complete fools during games.
Okay, Marcario's madness every week here on the Fairfax Sports Report. And John, I got to disagree with you. Ooh. Fans actually do have the right to do whatever they want, whenever they want. But what you'd like to see out of them is a little bit of class and a little bit of respect. And you mentioned one game in particular, the Centerville-Robinson soccer game. I got to say, I was there as well. And in my time covering a lot of sports here in the northern region, it was on a scale of 1 to 10, I'd call it a 6. But I've seen, and you're right when you say that fans should temper themselves, but that's on a case-by-case basis, and you often get that. What I also noted from your madness was the $300 fine in Utah. That's like $7,000 here in Fairfax. So I just thought I'd throw that out there. For those of you that thought it wasn't a lot of money, that's a heck of a lot of money out there in Utah. They lose one wife with that, $300.
Got 5 more to go.
All right, no offense to the Mormon community. I know there's a big one here in the area. All right, guys, let's jump into the underwriters, the folks that make this show possible, and the folks that make things like this possible. The FSN Game of the Week, Northern Region Girls Soccer to be televised. That's to be announced. And now on demand, baseball. Langley at McLean. I got a chance to call that game. That was a phenomenal game. It was fun. Langley, I don't want to spoil it for those of you who weren't there. So go ahead on the web and see when that one's going to run on FSN. We're on the web, www.fairfaxsportsnetwork.com. CCI Screen Printing for all your screen printing needs at 703-978-0257. A special thanks to our teammate, Quality Care Ford Service Center, servicing all makes and models at 703-383-6299. Triple Edge Lacrosse, www.tripleedgelax.com. A special thanks to all our teammates, and a special thanks to you gentlemen for holding down the fort last week while I was gone. Hopefully I'll get in the office and get into the Fairfax Sports Report studio as much as I can in the coming weeks, but I know if not, you gentlemen are going to hold down the fort because you did a great job of that last week.
Maybe make it even better?
Oh, maybe with me gone, more ladies will tune in.
There's a chance. There is a very slight chance.
You can tune in every week on the Fairfax Sports Report. Check the website for more details as to how and when to find games and up-to-date commentary here on the Fairfax Sports Network. I'm BJ Kubarulis for Paul Frummelt and John Marcario saying so long and tune in next week.